Okay, good morning, everyone. How are you? Happy to see you. Happy Friday. And Christy Haley Stover here, and want to also thank my team for joining. And Mindy, give a big shout out to Mindy.
Good morning, everybody.
She's the one that's making sure that everyone gets has the communication, and she's our front line of defense for technology, which is great. Love to have that. And then Cindy, Miss Orange County, and Nita, Miss Southern California, and Josh, Mr. California. And he's working with clients up and down California. So thank you, Josh, for all the coverage you're providing. That's great. So we've had a wild week, right? It's, between the shelter in place and all the protests, and it's really nice to be part of a community that feels so inclusive. So I just want to thank all of you. And I know that so many people are not feeling included, and so, and I know our wish is to make sure that everyone's feeling included, and also this is a judgment-free zone, right? So we have a great speaker for you today, and Sigmund happens to be just such an amazing person. He's a longtime boot camp alumni, so he probably went through boot camp, 10 years ago, something like that?
It was Cindy's very first teaching experience.
Oh, wow. And Cindy's been with us for 9 years. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, I know. So Sigmund has been a very long time and huge supporter of our boot camp alumni. And I will say, Sigmund is one of the people that every time you see him, there's a smile on his face and there's this positive energy that exudes from him. And so I'll tell you a little bit about Sigmund, and then Sigmund, feel free to say a little bit more. But Sigmund is a CTO and a VP of technology. And he currently works for a company doing privacy solutions. And he has just a tremendous reputation. Everything that people say about him who have worked with Sigmund have said that he is known to take people from being very tactical and reaction focused to being very strategic. So, and those of you who know the highly technical people, that's not so easy to do. And Sigmund is known for that. So hats off to Sigmund for doing that. And also Sigmund is a Boy Scout troop leader, and he has been for, I don't know how many years, Sigmund, but just what a great thing for you to do. You're just, the epitome of the go-giver, right? It's something that you continue to do. You are just so generous with your time and with your knowledge and just your positive energy. And thank you so much for doing that. So I'll go ahead.
Can we stop now? I feel so good. Can we just all go?
But you are, Sigmund. It's such a pleasure to see you every time I've seen you. It's like there's Sigmund, and we can always count on you to be that, great boot camp alumni community cheerleader. So if anybody wants to reach out to Sigmund, I would highly recommend that. And so Sigmund, I'm going to turn it over to you. And then for everyone who's just joining, what I'd like you to do, if you could, put your LinkedIn profile link in the chat and put where you're calling from. And I think we're having people, all over the place, and would love to see where you're calling from. And also, as you put the any questions that you have, we'll open it up for Q&A a little bit later. And so don't hesitate to put your questions down so we can kind of facilitate that afterwards. So Sigmund, take it away.
Hey, I'm going to share my screen as soon as the host lets me. I'm used to being the host. This is it's been an interesting experience. There we go. Well, until they let me. Yes, thank you so much. All right. Here we go. Nope, 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 nope. We're going to see how well this works. You share. And no. All right. Can you see it okay? Okay. My particular setup, PowerPoint is a little overzealous and it takes over all my screens if I do the slideshow. So unfortunately, I'm going to click through them this way. I want to talk about Zooming. First off, I did the 7 tips because that's the way you're supposed to do talks like this. You give them a small number and say, those are the keys to the kingdom. The reality is somewhere between 1 and 200 tips would be about right. You can go online and do a Google search and step back because there are a lot of people with a lot of great ideas. And I actually do recommend you consider doing that and then go through those and pick out different things that speak to you well. But there are some things I really want to hit on. The first is this is a new way of networking and it isn't. So I'm going to talk about that and then go through some setup things and some tips that I think are interesting to get to in Zoom. So first I want to start with the idea of networking. Networking has not changed. Just because it's virtual, it's still networking. And what you're doing, you have your goals in networking. You've heard this from any number of people. I heard it first from John Labonte, to show my age. Those who remember his wonderful tips on networking. But you have your goals for networking. You're meeting people, you're helping them, they're helping you, you're following up, etc. That has not changed. But there are differences between virtual and in person. In person has some advantages. It's easier to make a connection, but just to be honest, it's easier to make a mistake. I remember I did a one-on-one meeting with somebody at a coffee shop and drove up in my 1956 Chevy because it was a Friday and it was sunny and it was California. And the first thing the guy I met with said, you know, I think it's stupid that people have old cars that aren't as reliable. It's just like a dumb idea. And I threw his card away before I left the building. You know, it's so there are some pitfalls in meeting person to person, but it is a little easier to make a connection. Virtually, it's a lot easier to find a time to meet. You don't have to drive to a place. You don't have to say, I don't know what he looks like. I got to try to find him in the coffee shop or the restaurant. So it's easier to make the connection or make the meeting happen, but it's more difficult to make the connection. It takes an effort, and you have to put in that effort of saying, I need to ask some questions that may not have come up, that don't come up naturally when you're just talking to a little camera at the top of your screen. So, you know, when I do one-on-one meetings with people or Zoom meetings with people, I do take the conversation off into Boy Scouts or old cars or whatever it is that interests them, et cetera. Because remember, networking, right? I'm not just talking at a meeting at a Zoom conference. I'm trying to make a connection with somebody. So that's an effort we have to go through. But it's also easier virtually to have a branded look. You don't know what type of shoes I'm wearing right now. And I'm not going to show you, but you know, I mean, so it's easier to do your branded look, but at the same time, you know, you have to work at making the connection. But the most important thing I want to say about virtual networking is it is a new skill. There are people who are good at this, and they go on TV, talking heads, newscasters, or you know, TV shows. We need to get that skill here too. So we need to learn how to project, how to, what not to do, you know, no swiveling in the chair, things you can do in person that you don't do here. So it's a skill. And I'm just saying, go to as many of these kind of meetings as you can and practice. Because we don't get good at things by reading books, or I'd be really good at a lot of things. We get by practicing. So those are the keys for that. So no difference here. It's still networking. Don't treat it like something else. So I want to talk about things. Actually, oddly enough, for video conferencing, my #1 tip is the sound. You need a good microphone. I had a networking meeting where one person's microphone died. He might as well have not come. I mean, I could see him nodding his head. I could talk to him in the chat, but if you can't hear the person talk, if they can't talk, it doesn't work. If the sound breaks up, and it does sometimes with microphones, that's a problem. And also, some microphones are very directional. So when you start to turn your head, the sound drops off. So you can test your sound for the video and the sound. All of the, whatever you have has a test for it. Zoom has one where you can record and play back. Obviously, Windows and iOS do too. So test your sound, make sure it's good. If it's not, you're gonna need to get an external mic. Now, the built-in microphones, again, are the problem. On laptops, they tend to be horrible to okay. Webcams tend to be quite good. And external mics, of course, are great. There are also clip-on mics you can get, which I haven't tried, but I love the idea that it's right here. Obviously, the idea of a clip-on mic works great because that's what we see used in situations on TV a lot. So, you know, headsets work as well. I used to use a headset a lot. I do recommend a headset for situations where you don't want your sound blasting throughout the house of the meeting. So it does help keep the meeting to yourself. And the headset look is mostly acceptable. It depends on the situation. Some people think it doesn't, but you know, it's certainly better than your sound cutting out. So microphones to me are your number one, even though it's a video conference, it's the number one thing you need to have working right. Okay. Right now, by the way, I'm using an external MXL musicians, podcasters microphone that's way off to the side because it can be. But that's it's because my kids are musicians. Okay, so let's talk about light. Light is probably obviously the second most important thing. You can be too washed out, it can be too dark. If it's too bright, you do look washed out and that's a problem. If it's too dark, I swear it looks like you're in witness protection. I have seen this happen like somebody in every meeting. You think, wow, if you can see your computer really good, I probably can't see you well. It's because the lighting's behind you, and you know, you can see in front of you just fine, but you know, other people can't see you. So that's, you got to watch. I mean, again, you can test it, you can see it. The other thing is, again, as a photographer, every light has a color. Fluorescent light, well, the incandescent lights turn you orange. Fluorescent lights turn you what I'd like to call dead. You're green and gray, and you start wondering, you know, if it's stranger tides or something. Anyway, and LEDs will tend to make you blue. All of those types of lights have what's called a full spectrum version. They're not that expensive, but you know, where you're spending 50 cents for a light bulb, it's going to be $3 or $4 for a full spectrum light bulb. But fluorescence and incandescence and LEDs come in full spectrum. It's sort of a misnomer, I think. Full spectrum just means it's the same color as natural sunlight. To a photographer, if anybody photographers out there want to know, it's about 5,500 degrees Kelvin. But that's just the light it is. It's the light we're used to seeing each other in. So it's the type to get. So when I say use a light, I always want it to be a full spectrum light. And no lights behind you. The example you're seeing here is one. Again, it's right on the lines of too dark, where you know, we can't see you at all. And the last thing I want to mention is people who wear glasses. If you don't wear glasses, bless you, life is so much easier. Because all those forms of light reflect on the glasses. There are things called ring lights, which create these really nice circles in my glasses. You know, it's a problem. But I want you to remember your high school physics. Light is a wave that's sort of like, I mean, think of it as a stream of water. It bounces exactly the way it is. The angle it comes in on is the angle it leaves at. So just play with your light angle so that the reflection of your glasses doesn't make it into the camera. Does that make sense? So I'm just saying you will have reflections, but you can tilt your glasses. You can tilt the light where you're still getting the light on you, but the angle does not go back to the camera. So again, you got to sort of think your way through that. Or not, I mean, people like me, engineers like me, try to figure out the math. The reality is just look at the picture. And you know, I'd rather work on the math. But if you just look at the picture, you can see whether you have reflections or not. I have a fill light on this side I used to use, but it went right for my glasses. So I end up using the reflector instead to fill in because it's more diffuse. So again, people with glasses, please look for, when you're testing your video, look for reflections in your eyes, in your glasses, because I guarantee everybody is seeing it. And that goes for your computer as well. I can't tell you how many times with people with glasses, I see blue. They have coating on the glasses to reflect it or whatever they have, but I see the light from the computer screen coming in. And if the ambient light around it isn't bright enough, the brightest thing in the room is the computer screen, then that's going to start showing up in your glasses. So that's about the type of light. Now let's talk about where the light is. It's pretty straightforward. If you're going to have a single source of light, let me back up a second. Pick a place. What is your office? Where is it? In the bedroom, in the kitchen, not in the kitchen, please not in the kitchen. You know, in the dining room, wherever it is, often there's a fair amount of light there, but sometimes the best place is where there isn't any light, in a bedroom, in a corner, where you can control everything. So pick the place that is the best place to work, and then let's make the light work there. So, because you need quiet, you need to be by yourself, you don't need the kids and the dogs and the cats, you know, running through. I'm right by a window, so, you know, I'll mention this later, but I get the ice cream truck at 2 o'clock, which means I better not be talking then because I've got to mute. But pick that place and then do the light. The light needs to come from in front of you, again, not behind you. If you have only one light, and I'm talking you know, a torch light from Target, something, put it off center in front of you, and that's one. But if you see the guy at the top, picture there, that's that example, one light. He looks pretty good, but he also has a shadow. And I have that problem, I'm reworking my lighting now. I have a bit of a shadow on this side because my window is so bright that I'm actually gonna get a translucent shade to put on it so it's not quite so much light coming in, and it'll be easier for me to balance. The better is to have two lights. Exactly the same, again, slightly off center on both sides in front of you. And that'll give you the picture you see at the bottom. Not from the side, from in front, but off to the side. Okay, and then overkill, the photographers like 3 lights for doing portrait photography, but that's, again, overkill, but that's where you light up the background. The one thing I do ask, if you're picking a corner or going in somewhere, don't be too close to the wall, because you'll get that shadow that you see sometimes when people do flash photography, and you don't want that look either. Okay, so that is straightforward. That's it for lighting. 1 light in front, 2 lights in front, you're done. If one of those is a window, that sort of by definition is full spectrum lighting, so you're cool, but you're just gonna have to watch the brightness because it can get too bright and wash you out. Cool. I'm taking questions at the end. So here's an example. This is overkill, but it's the best I could find online, is to give you an idea of the placement, where it's off center, but still in front. This is a more professional setup for gaming, but you get the idea of where the lights are. And I wouldn't put them that close either, but you know, back off a little bit and just get something. So again, I'm not trying to spend a lot of money here. My daughter teaches English to Chinese kids at 3 o'clock in the morning our time, and she has a setup like this where she has 2 Target torch lights, the stand, the light on a stand, and a nice background behind her where she puts her you know, her tools for teaching English. Okay, so that's lights, sound, and lights. Now let's talk about where the camera is. First of all, where is your camera? In a laptop, it's usually at the top, in the middle. There's a couple of laptops out there where they actually put it at the hinge. There's a picture there of one down there. If your camera is there, get a separate camera. There's no way I can make that one work for you. I am sorry. And you can have a webcam or a tablet and or a phone, of course, work for Zoom as well. So find your camera, know where it is. Your camera should be 5 degrees, give or take, above your eyes. So what that means is your laptop is too low. And if you have a desktop with a camera on top of the monitor, it's probably too high. So if a laptop, the best thing to do is put a box on. I'm not saying, you know, that you're not typing, right? So it's not like, I'm not trying to make this into an ergonomic workspace. I'm trying to make it into a studio setup. So I need you to have a box or something that raises the laptop up to a level that the camera is about, you know, about your forehead, about 5 degrees above your eyes. And that's going to be the best placement for that. Just raise it up. The bromide I say is that if I can see your ceiling, I'm looking up your nose. Not always true, because what people tend to do when they think about it, when it's down there, they will tilt their head to look down into it. So I'm not looking up your nose, but it sort of gives that sort of feeling that I'm looking up into things. And so now to be honest, Christy, you've got such a wide angle on there. I don't think there's a way I could not see your ceiling. Your camera is amazingly a wide angle. So, you know, there are ways around that, but that's sort of my little a tip to say, maybe you need to raise your laptop up a little bit more. So, and a webcam, again, in my case, I have a webcam and I've had to raise my chair up a little high for my typing, but it's not what I'm doing right now. So I'm raising up till the camera's in the right place. And if you're going to use a phone or a tablet, which I have done, you've got to get a stand or something to hold it. Again, raise it so I mean the camera's wherever it is. Raise it up again so it's the right place, but please don't hand hold those things. I feel like it's, you know, the 1971 earthquake again. So, you know, just have a stand for that. You need, overall, I'm going to say this again later, but I want to say it again. Let's start it now. You are on camera 100% of the time. In a meeting like this with, I can't see how many people are on, with as many people as there are, somebody's looking at you. And if you're in an interview doing this, they're probably recording it and somebody's going to look at you later. I mean, just because the interviewer, looked away doesn't mean that you can relax, because somebody's watching that. So you're basically on camera. Most of the time you should be looking at the camera. Obviously you can look at the people down there, but it's a little disconcerting sometimes that when somebody's talking to me, they're looking down to me because I'm right there on their screen, but all I see is this. So, you know, especially when you're talking, look at the camera. The second thing is, you all know how teleprompters work. We've got a better view in the last 10, 15 years of the media showing us how teleprompters work. One of the reasons they work is that 5, 10 degrees, we can't discern. I can look below the camera, which is what I'm doing right now, but it's so close, it looks like I'm looking at the camera. So if you have your branding statement or your 30-second pitch, and you want to be able to read it, just bring it up on the monitor right underneath the camera, and you should be able to read it and look like you're looking at people. So, you know, consider your monitor a teleprompter. And if you have 2 monitors, that one over there is not a teleprompter, because I can tell. So, so that's what I want to say on the camera position. It's about 5 degrees above your eyes, no matter what it takes to make that happen. And 2, look at it as much as you can. Obviously, I mean, think how you are in a meeting. You're not staring at the other people all the time, but a good portion of the time you are. Sometimes you're taking notes. Okay, I'm used to having, you know, this is interesting. I'm used to having people pop up with questions, and I'll have to wait till afterwards. All right, camera position. One more thing. People are sometimes, now my wife found this. I didn't want to embarrass people that I know, so I was, you know, I had all these pictures, but they're people I know. But my wife found one that was full of cats. So here's things not to do in Zoom from cat point of view. So I use these. People are sometimes too close to the screen. That's a problem. I had 3 people in the LNC meeting on Wednesday who looked like the cat at the bottom, where I didn't see all of them. Actually, one of them, I saw more of his chest and never the top of his head. And I just think, wow, you know, most people look at themselves. How did you do that? But nevertheless, check it out. Make sure that your face is in it. Everybody's pretty much, the people I can see here are pretty much, centered and a good size. If you back up too much, you become this really, really tiny head. Yeah, thank you, Bill. Exactly, thank you. That's a problem too. So you may have to, those of us who have webcams, because it looks like Christy does, they come with a very wide angle. And so I tend to get a little closer to my monitor than I normally am, because otherwise I'm a little head. And I wish they came with the zoom feature, but they don't. I figured out how to do that separately, but it's a little tricky. So watch the angles, watch where you are. Look at the camera, and I talked about how your notes can be on the camera as well. Do not look at your second monitor. Do not look at your phone. Do not, this is the hard one, don't look at yourself all the time on the screen. And I'm also going to say, and this sounds weird, okay, now the street sweeper is coming. I love this. Do not look at the person you're talking to. You can, you know what, hold on a second. I really don't want to listen to the street sweeper. Do not look at the person you're talking to, because that's not where they are. The person is not down there. They're up here at the camera. So it is a difficult, it's one of the skills to learn, is that especially when you're talking. Now, I will look at everybody, people I'm talking to, people who are talking, I will tend to look at them, but when I'm talking, I look at the camera. Cool. Now, those were the setup things. Now I want to talk about the background. In general, you want to keep the background simple. The less in it, the better. And I'm thinking a little more. Now let's be honest here. In networking, we're trying to make a connection with people. Being a real person in a real place is a part of that. So what I'm saying, I'm thinking here more of interviews and professional situations. If I'm trying to make a connection with somebody, I will turn this off, and I will show where my actual, not fairly cleaned up, but my real place where I work, or I will show something else, because that's part of making a connection. We can talk about the picture that's behind you, or it just makes you a real person. When you're interviewing, again, what my view is, an interview is a situation where they try to figure out why they should not hire you. And so I don't want to give them any of those kind of reasons, right? So I will look for a very professional, simplistic, nice quiet background for those situations. What you see in the picture here is actually a backdrop, but it's something that you can do. You can even, we'll talk about virtual backgrounds in just a second, but it clean, not a lot of lights, because they can be distracting, and as few distractions as possible. So again, I think Cindy is a good example of making a connection, of saying, this is a warm and personal environment. And mine, right, that you see right now, is much more business focused, in that I'm trying to tell you who I am and that I'm a techie, et cetera. So, you have to figure out what works for each situation and be flexible. That nothing says we have to have the same background every time. But anyway, clean and fewer distractions is still best. Now, if you want to have a virtual background, the first thing is you may not be able to. Zoom has hardware requirements to handle virtual backgrounds, and they do it with some pretty interesting software that's running pretty hard to keep up. It is green screen-less. In other words, it does not require a green screen. It knows that you have a face and a body below it. And actually, I tried this. Zoom allows you to rotate your background, your whole screen. in case you have a phone that's sideways or whatever. So I turned myself upside down, and it said, I mean, the software says the body is below the head. So when I turned my picture upside down, I got my head and the whiteboard that's above me as my body. In other words, it's only capable of so much. So there's software in there that's running pretty hard to try to be able to cut out the background and not have problems. And it takes a lot of processing power. So almost every time I've talked to somebody who's having trouble with backgrounds, it's because they can't. Now, having said that, it still works if you have a green screen. If your processing power, if your laptop is not, Zoom says I can't do a virtual background, they mean I can't do a virtual background without a green screen. If you have a green screen, if you have a plain background, even as plain and brown as that one is, if you have that, then it'll work and you can have virtual backgrounds. So the way to do that, if that's what you want to do, you can get a stand and a cloth for, I don't know, about $50, $60, somewhere in that range. You know, Walmart or Amazon or whatever, look for photographic backgrounds. So you can create your own green screen if that, I mean, at some point that could be the easiest way to do it. Sort of depends on how it goes. Also, again, if you have a wall behind you, you could just spend the $22 on the green or a blue or a something and just pin that to the wall. And then you have an absolutely plain, and then you can do virtual backgrounds even on a laptop that doesn't have the power to handle this. That's one. Before you get too much invested in virtual backgrounds, only Zoom and Teams currently allow it. There are other video conferencing that don't. So, you know, a lot of Zoom happening, but you know, it's not going to work in every situation. So you're still going to be you're still going to have times. For example, McDermott and Bull uses Ring Central, which does not allow virtual backgrounds. You're going to have a clean area behind you regardless. Now, you're going to do virtual backgrounds. I'm going to recommend you have a number of different ones. The one that I'm displaying right now, which I also put on the screen there, was a very specific choice, and I recommend this for networking. Right now, if you look at the screen of people, there's a lot of little, well, if you're looking at the gallery view, there's a lot of little, what I call tiny talking heads. Now, look over the whole sea of them, and I know, because he's consistent and because I like palm trees, I know how to find John Moore because he's got, you know, because that sort of stands out. The blue sky, the palm tree waving, I can find it. That's why I picked the blue matrix here. I'm a little more fond of blue than green. So, you know, I picked it because you could find it. If you're looking for Sigmund, you'll find him in that sea of tiny talking heads by looking for basically blue stripes, blue and black stripes. So something to consider if you want to stand out in a networking meeting. Second, put your name, consider putting your name on your virtual background. If you do so, please make it big. I have seen names that I couldn't read unless they were the whole side of my screen, but just an idea of something to do with your virtual backgrounds. And lastly, one of the things I want to mention, if you're going to use a virtual background, that's cool. Obviously, I like them. But if you're going to show something off, if you're in a situation where you want to display something, virtual backgrounds don't work. If I had something in my hand, where's my Yeti? There, I'm holding up a Yeti. Oh, there it is. It comes and goes. So it doesn't work for that. Something to consider. If you really need to show something and you're in the virtual, hold it in front of your body. It works a lot better because the software has decided that this area is what it can show. So if you want to, yeah, hold your business card in front of your face. Thank you, Bill. That's exactly it. If he holds it off to the side, it's not going to show up. And I'm going to tell a story on John Moore again. I've been in too many meetings with him. He does that thing where you flip a pen in your fingers, which I can't do, and the pen didn't show. I thought he was having a medical emergency, but he was just flipping a pen. Are you okay, John? So anyway, something to consider with virtual backgrounds. Cool. If anybody, one of the things I'd also like to recommend before I get off of the backgrounds, have in your one-on-ones, part of your one-on-one with people, especially with people you know fairly well, talk to each other about how you look and how you sound and how it works. I mean, we talk about, we're practicing this, but without feedback, we're just going to end up enforcing bad habits. So make a part of that meeting. How do I look? How do I sound? Is my microphone working okay? I do that almost every meeting. Of course, sorry, I got to say as well, in pandemic times, I also mention the day of the week in every meeting. So remind myself, today's Friday, right? Happy Friday. Okay. Great. That's virtual backgrounds. Now, I want to get to another tip that isn't about setup, but it's about how to make a virtual networking meeting work for you. When I go to a meeting that has 100 people in it, if you remember the 2010 McDermott and Bull ones that they had, 100 and something people in it. The way that you succeed in that is you find a couple of people that you're going to connect to and you go talk to them. It's not about meeting 50 people. It's about meeting 5 or 3. And you can do the same thing right now today in this meeting. In the chat, you can, I'm sorry, first thing, do my order here. Get to the meeting early and talk to the people as they come in. And we were doing that. Needed that, Christy, you were doing that. Welcoming people as they come in. And you can do that too. And if the conversation is going on and that's cool, you don't interrupt it. Still, when somebody enters, you can talk to them privately in the chat and say, hey, good to see you. I haven't talked to you in ages. I'd like to do a one-on-one next week. You set up that meeting then. So get to the meeting early. A little quick note, I want to tell you, the order of people in a Zoom meeting is, it's a very simple algorithm, and it's this. The first person is the person speaking, if using gallery view. The second person is you. From there on, it's in order. The people who have the people who have a video running are ahead of the people who don't, are ahead of the people who phoned in. And within those groups, it's how long they've been on. So the person who came in earliest and left his video on the entire time is going to be third on your screen, assuming it's not you. So if I were to turn my video off because I wanted to go get something and come back and turn it back on, I'm at the bottom of the list of people who have their video on. Okay, so that's just a quick aside on the order of things. So another reason to get there early. Early in the meeting, as Christy had you do, please do that at every meeting. Put your LinkedIn link in the chat so that it's there for people who save the chat and they can find you. And then lastly, this is the key. Pick a couple of people at the meeting and decide you want to have a one-on-one with them. Every meeting I go to, I want to leave with 3 one-on-ones, none of which interrupted the meeting, none of which anybody heard about. I just simply private chatted them and said, Don, it's been a while. Actually, Richard and I did that a couple meetings ago where I hadn't talked to him in a while. And I said, Richard, let's get together on a one-on-one, and we did. So, and that's what you see over in the corner in the display is you see the number of private chats I was having. That's a real one. Again, sorry, John, you show up way too much. But I mean, that's an example of private chatting happening. So that's how you set up meetings. So I want to say that is the way that you make a networking meeting successful. And then lastly, of course, you need to save that chat. And it's easy that there's the 3 dots. If you look at the example there or in your own chat, down where you're choosing who to talk to, where it's everyone or private, you'll see 3 dots. You click on that, save chat as the top choice. So, and to talk to somebody privately, you can click on their little picture on the screen right now, or you can click on their name if you're showing the list of participants, or you can do the drop down where it says everyone and just scroll until you find their name. Couple of warnings. Make sure you're talking to the right person. And here's something that catches me. I had somebody say, I gotta bump out now. I'll talk to you later. And so I clicked on his name in the list there where you see the list now. and I replied to him, but he had already left the meeting by that time, so it didn't change. So it was good to see you. I'll talk to you later. Went to John, who was the last person I had talked to, and he remembers that too. So I'm just saying, before you hit send on your messages, make sure it is the right person. So, okay, cool. That is the number one. That is chatting. That is how you make the meeting successful. Okay, two more things. Stay in the meeting. Again, this one from my wife found angry cats, but I actually had this happen. There's someone, actually, I don't know if you know, I gotta be careful. I don't know if you know RBF. It's a common term among the youngsters, a resting bee face. So some people have a less than effervescent resting face. And you're there listening and to what people are saying. And I had one guy, I thought, sure, he was going to shoot somebody. I mean, he was just such a, it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't someone I said, gee, I want to do a one-on-one with that guy. He looked, you know, it was a little bit like a hitman. But I'm just saying that you are projecting that. So I want you to be careful about, remember the camera's always on. And what does your resting face look like? And one way to consider doing that is just do a print screen occasionally, just randomly. Not, you know, not while you say, oh, I'm going to smile because I'm going to take a picture. Or maybe have somebody else do it and then you see what you look like. Look at the camera, not at your phone. Also be careful of your posture. The same guy who was frowning was slouching. And, you know, we are trying to project that we're interested, that this is not a waste of our time. And even if you're just relaxing, it sort of looks like you'd rather be, you know, doing something else. I have one more that's really important. And for considering how long I've been talking, this is sort of hard to say. Don't talk so much. We have a lot of clues in person that tell us it's time to shut up. And none of them come across in a video conference. So whether you time yourself or you just, you know, my version is, if I leave a meeting with 5 things I wanted to say and didn't, I probably didn't do too bad. But anyway, I'm just saying, please realize that you don't have the clues when people want you to move on to something else. You can take notes. I mean, obviously people do that all the time, but in general, what I want to say is that I'm also not talking just to Christy. I'm talking to everybody. And so it's one of the reasons you look at the camera and not the person you're talking to, but at the same time, realize that you're talking to everybody. So, you know, you have to, that affects what you say and how you say it. So be aware that you're talking to 100 people. How many people do we have? Well, 100 people. And lastly, I want to mention, you can be part of the conversation while you're muted, right? We have thumbs up, we have waving, we have smiling, we have nodding. These are all things you do in the meeting when you're in a circle of people talking and you're not the one talking. There's a way to do that. Please continue to do that, because an absolutely unmoving, if I can't tell the difference between you and your profile picture, you probably should move a little more. So be a part of the conversation just as you are, as if you were standing there. So try to, it has to be a little bigger. The thing that my biggest mistake is, I use my hands a lot and they're below the camera and nobody knows. So I think I'm being, you know, whatever, but I got to come up here because, you know, it just doesn't happen. So that's stay in the meeting. And lastly, mute is your friend. Use it. Come in muted. Mute every time you can. Some people like to use the Zoom has a spacebar unmute thing. I personally don't like it because you forget how long to hold it down. You know, I just turn it on and off. But if you're not on mute, that way nobody hears when your phone rings, which you should have muted their phone, but you forgot, but nobody heard it anyway. You don't hear the ice cream truck go by or the gardener come by. You don't hear somebody, my wife could come in the door and wave and say, you know, she's taking off, and none of you know that because I'm muted. So there's a lot of reasons to stay muted as long as you can. Also, if there's some weird noise and you have that little oh, sorry, over here, you have that little red mute thing on your screen, you get no blame. You know it's not, that nobody's going to blame you for the noise because they know it didn't come from you. So check it, use it, and it's almost like a gun where you assume it's loaded, assume it's on unless you know it's muted. So yeah, having the one thing, sorry, I was looking at what you're looking at. This is something that programmers know, but other people may not. Typing is amazingly noisy. The little clicks come across on a microphone like crazy, especially on a laptop's microphone, because it's not that far away from the keys. So another reason for muting when you're typing. And that's all I got.
Okay, this is great, Sigmund. I love it. Okay, there's a lot of little questions that I've been getting, and privately and looking at the chat. But I thought you said something that was really interesting. We are now talking heads. Totally right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We are no different than the people on the news, on the TV. So we get to learn how to be celebrities, right? Good talking heads. That is a goal of mine. I want to be a good talking head. Okay, so you said look at the camera and not yourself or the person. Okay, so here's the question. So you're looking at the camera, not the person.
Right.
How do you figure out the cues of, like you're talking too much or the person's not interested? Or, I mean, it's really difficult to look at the camera and then not look at you for the cues.
Yeah, I agree. And then look at the camera, but what you really do is you're looking at the camera 80% of the time that you're talking. And because the camera is so close to the monitor, you can look down and up, you can look at the people. You can't watch them enough for clues. Absolutely agree. They're not that hard. They're not that easy to find anyway. So some of those you just have to know on your own that say every point once, don't say it twice because you're probably running over, that kind of thing. Make your point simple and concise. But yeah, it's agreed. That's part of the skill, but you can look away for small amounts of time. It's just that predominantly, if somebody remembers you, you want them to remember that your eyes were looking at them.
Okay, and then you talked about the laptop camera, and yes, my laptop camera, very wide angle, right? Yep. And the other thing is that, and somebody else has a similar question that she sent to me privately, but so with my camera, it makes me look angelic. Not that I mind, but it's like this ghosty kind of thing. And for a while it was ghosty with colors even muted out. So I had to update the drivers and do a reboot and download all this stuff. And it was quite extensive. Okay. And but I got it at least a little bit better, but still. So it seems like even though I have a great laptop, it's fairly new, and I'm thinking that getting a new separate webcam would be more beneficial.
Okay, there's two answers there. Yes, a separate webcam is the best answer across the board. I'm using a 1080p camera that costs about $150. Logitech 990. There are 720p's that are in the $90 range. Some of them will take a while to get just because they're sort of hen's teeth these days. So that's one. And two, as a photographer, I got to be careful how I say this, but sometimes the difference between a good camera and a bad camera is the light, not the camera. Or maybe how I should say that is I can solve some of the issues of a bad camera if I work on the lighting, if I can't replace the camera. And so if the lighting is too, well, I got an example. I told you I was running a meeting on my laptop over here, and it's an old laptop, and its camera is horrible. And it's really, really horrible in low light. So So you know what, we can close the, oh, you did, thank you.
I did.
Thank you, perfect. It's really a problem in low light. So the more light I bring into it, the better job it does.
And here's another camera question. And actually I have an HP laptop, and this other person with the question has an HP laptop. But her issue is that the lighting makes her hair and black clothing look purple.
Sure.
So what can be, so would you recommend, are there like driver settings that you can reset, or is it just simply getting a separate webcam?
I would, to be honest, I'd work on her light source first and her camera second. If what turns black to purple is that the camera, the lens isn't getting enough light. And so I need to brighten the world so that it is. And so while I don't want to wash out your face, nevertheless, if I brought a brighter light into the picture, if I had more light on the subject, the black would start to get blacker.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. And then somebody else said that the laptop power is important for high performance webcams. Does the high performance webcam that you know, like if I were to get a separate webcam for my laptop to have better color, would it impact the power from the laptop?
Okay, so first off, you're talking about processing power, just to be clear, not other kinds of power. Right. Yes, it can have an effect depending on the age of the, I mean, I could overdo it. If you have a 720p or even a 1020, even a HD, which is 1020p pixels, the P is pixels. You put that on a regular laptop that's, you know, let's just say less than 5 or 6 years old. It's not going to require processing power to show that image. You should be okay. If I go too much older, then yeah, everything starts to have problems. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think it does. Somebody had just put that. And then, so if we're looking for a separate webcam, should we look for a webcam without a microphone so that we could get a better quality microphone?
No, I wouldn't do that. That to me would be overkill. Okay. I would get a webcam with the webcams that I've used. Now I have to admit my experience is mainly with Logitech, but they've all had really pretty decent microphones built in. Okay. And, you know, I'd spend your money on something else.
Okay. And then somebody asked a question, where is the microphone on your laptop?
That varies tremendously. So I mean, I can't tell you.
Okay, so it just depends on the laptop, but you can see it based on the little grate, the little dots, right?
Your chance of seeing a microphone on a laptop are pretty low. It's going to be most likely a single hole.
Okay, all right. Oh, okay, that's interesting. And then, so somebody had said gallery view is not your friend. It creates shifty eyes. So how do you combat that? Because you're right. Anyway. I'm looking at everyone, right? And it looks like I'm shifty.
So Christy, let me chime in. That was my comment, right? So what I've learned to do is, especially if you have two people, this looks terrible, right? You've got two people on the screen, you wind up looking like this, right? So if you're having a one-on-one with somebody, just pin their video. There's a little option to pin their video, and then their video sits in the middle of the screen, and you look at them, and you're not constantly looking at yourself and moving backwards and forwards.
But that's, I mean, look at the gallery. And if you look at my eyes, I'm looking at everyone, right? I want to see faces. I want to see reactions.
Right.
But it's conflicting with let's look at the camera so that we are, looking like we're attentive and present. It's the talking head thing. Talking heads, look at the camera.
But I'll agree with Richard that on a one-to-one, you don't need to switch between you and them. If you pin their video, then they're the only one, whether they're talking or not, which is probably best. I mean, I know what I look like. At least I tested it before I started the meeting. And so I agree with that. When there's a meeting like this, where there's, bunches of people and I show 49 at a time per screen, I prefer the gallery view because because again, remember at a networking meeting, I'm trying to find people that I want to talk to. And it's not necessarily the person who's talking. So, I mean, you've been to, Christy, when you're talking at a live boot camp reunion, what percentage of the people are listening to you and what percentage are doing their meeting in the background? I think you're lucky to get 60% of the people that actually stop and listen to you.
I know. That's why I'm trying to be more animated or something.
There you go.
Or next time I'm going to wear a costume.
Oh, get you an air horn. But that's what I'm doing with the gallery view as well, is that I'm not in that meeting. I'm trying to have a couple of one-on-ones with people with chat. So that's why in a big meeting, I will promote the idea of a gallery view.
So, and I like the other thing that you said is don't multitask, because people know when you're multitasking.
You think you're getting away with it, but you're not.
I know. And it's like, you know, I was on Zoom with a prospective client the other day. And so when he was talking, he was totally engaged. And then he'd ask me a question and I would answer. And then I could tell that he's clicking around on his screen and looking at his emails. And it's like, okay, so I just, you know, I just made my questions, my answers so brief so that I could ask him another one. And that way I gained his, you know, I could maintain his attention. But the minute he asked me a question so he could check his emails, I just kept it brief and so that I could hold on to him.
I'm pretty clear when I'm taking notes, though. I mean, you know, I'm looking down, writing, and look back up.
Yeah, and I'm always writing. It's like I'm taking notes every time. And so there's another question about virtual backgrounds. And what's the best way to put a video in the background? And does it work the same way that a virtual background does?
Yes, it does. It works the same. You can create your own videos. You can find them online. John Moore's palm trees is a video, hence the palm trees are moving. So you can, it's just the same. When you add a video background to your gallery of backgrounds to use, you choose whether you're getting a video or a static. And then so you just download a video versus a JPEG.
Okay, and then the virtual backgrounds, and I will tell you, I was using virtual backgrounds for a while, but I don't like the ghosting thing around, and then the fact that sometimes my fingers don't show, or, you know, I don't know, it just, I think with my blonde hair, it didn't work as well. I had to make sure that the background was dark,
right? Because
if it was somewhat light, like if I used John Moore's, it was awful. So I stopped using virtual backgrounds.
Sure.
And, you know, and I like what you said about the green screen. And I think that those are probably more effective because then you can do a different type of photo, right? How do you do the green screen and then superimpose?
No, if you use a green screen, you use the virtual background exactly the same way. It doesn't need the processing power because it's not, it doesn't have to pick the chair out and the chair out and the whatever and all the little things out. You know, the crown molding all has to be figured out that that's not part of your body and your head, and that's done through software that has to run.
Okay, now somebody else wanted to have you repeat the order of Zoom picks the gallery view.
Oh, sure. Okay, so number 1 is the speaker. Number 2 is you. And then next after you come all the videos in order of how long they've been in the meeting. Then it's all non-videos in order of how long they've been in the meeting.
So what if what if I'm on a video and then I click it to video off? Does it resequence where I am?
Yep, you're at the bottom of the list of people who are in the video. So it's how long your video has been running, not how long you've been in the meeting. Okay.
All right, got it. And then I think most of the questions have been asked. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for a little bit. So you guys feel free to unmute yourselves and ask a question. What other questions of Sigmund?
Yes, Sigmund. I have a question. This is Farah.
Hi.
Is there a way that in a large meeting that goes on for a long time, I can video myself in in a Zoom format and let it run and then hide myself?
I love it. That's kind of like faking people out, right?
Yeah, so yes. If you were to record a video of yourself, and say that you did a 30-second video, or say a 15-second video of yourself,
Right.
nodding occasionally, whatever, and you could loop it well, because remember the videos do loop, right? I mean, that John Moore with his palm tree is not a 2-hour video. It's looping.
Mhm.
And what you'd have to do then is leave your camera on and then leave the chair. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? You would leave the room and then your video would run.
Yes, yes.
So there's a guy who's one of the first guys who did this. He created a video of himself walking behind his chair going, "What are you doing?" Then walking on, and he would play that in the background while he was in the meeting. It was like himself looking at himself. Yeah.
Okay. So when it gets saved, how do I look for it and how do I put it in my backgrounds?
So when you have a static or video file, wherever you put it on your computer, where the stop video is at the bottom left, there's a little up arrow, and that takes you to the virtual background screen.
Mm-hmm.
And in the virtual background where you're choosing which one you want, there's a little plus on the right. You click that, it says add video or add image.
Got it.
And then that is a browse to wherever your file is. And then what happens is all the ones that you bring in, you end up with a little gallery of ones it knows, and you can choose amongst them later.
I actually saved it, but I don't know where it went, so I couldn't find it. It's there, but I didn't know where my computer saves it. So I'm going to do it on cloud to see if I can find it easier. I don't know.
Okay. Do you know what the file name was? You could search for that, but sure.
I didn't name it. It didn't ask me, just saved it.
Okay.
Probably a date-wise or something somewhere.
You know that idea about when you lose an earring to find the next one, you just take the one that you have left and drop it?
No.
Same thing. I'm just saying, go make another video.
Oh,
You can name it and follow it to wherever it went.
Okay, that's hilarious. We'll have to look at your earrings next time, Sigmund.
Hey, you know.
Okay, and then what about when the video freezes? What's a way, so Kimberly, during our virtual boot camps, her video freezes.
Right.
And so what she has to do is take her video off and then restart it, and then she seems unfrozen. Is that the best way to do it? Is there something else?
Now, in general, that's an internet connection issue.
Right.
Bandwidth issue with her provider. So actually, thank you for bringing it up, because one thing I forgot to say, that if you're having bandwidth issues, turn off your video. At least I can hear you. At least you can be part of the meeting. You can see everybody else's video, but I'm okay looking at your name there as long as I can hear you and you can be part of the meeting. So I think we've all been in meetings. I certainly have, where we've asked people to turn off their video because it reduces your bandwidth requirement if your internet connection is not really up to it.
Okay, got it.
So same thing, that's what you're doing, is you're resetting, and maybe the bandwidth came back a little better.
Okay, and then any other questions?
Just a real quick question. First of all, this is Bill Brallier. Thank you, Sigmund, for your input. It's been great.
Sure.
What's your thought on having your professional headshot appear on screen when your video is turned off versus just a black screen with your name?
I prefer having a profile picture instead of just your name on black.
It looks like you're more present, right?
It looks, I mean, it does tell me who it is. Again, remember, I'm looking through all of these, trying to find people I want to do a one-on-one with,
Right.
and a name versus a picture. You know, I'm looking at Don Nguyen right there. I've had a one-on-one with him, and I can find him because I know what he looks like. So I really, really prefer that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Farah.
Sigmund, how sometimes my profile picture shows and sometimes it doesn't, and I don't know what I'm doing that it does that.
It means you're not logged in.
Ah.
It means you have a Zoom account, but you're not logged into your Zoom account, so it doesn't know who you are.
Got it.
I do recommend, if some work laptops won't allow it, but if you could download the Zoom client, it is I prefer that. It is a nicer way to go.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? All right, Sigmund, thank you so much.
Thank
This
you
has
much.
been wonderful. Love the
is
technical
great.
input, and it's
Sure,
not
thank you.
just, you know, how to be, you know, gorgeous on camera. It's
I can't speak to gorgeous on camera. Sorry, outside my experience. But
so
I do want to say,
we'll have to have another Zoom video about like the aesthetics and you know, another class. So we'll there's another boot camper who does a lot of like
perfect.
filming and stuff. That could be really fun, huh? So we'll look at
I would
that.
appreciate that myself, because you're presenting your brand is one of the real advantages of virtual. And so
Yeah.
somebody who's good at that, I would love that myself. Thank you.
So we're gonna name that your virtual branding or something. Your Zoom face.
Oh, Zoom face. I like that.
Makeup, clothes, you know, and
Your
she'll
Zoom
probably
face.
go into the lighting. I know. So I was, we'll have that. So everyone, next week we're gonna be talking. Bill Laser, I love you. It's great. And so next week we'll be talking about behavioral interviews and how to really address them. So we have 2.5 experts on behavioral interviews, and the half is she can join a little bit later, not right away. So we're working on putting that together, and then we have a couple of other things in store. So don't hesitate to share with us the things you want to hear, because we're making some good stuff happen, and we're here for you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Please connect with each other, connect with us, and you know, love your referrals. And thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Let's look forward to a better week next week. Someone mentioned we had a trifecta. They added in the earthquake this week. So everyone stay safe. Know that you're part of a great community, and thank you so much for all of your support and for your support of each other.
And save
Remember
your
to
chat.
save your chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.